David Johnson, a name you probably haven't heard in a while, but back in 2015, if you played fantasy football or were watching NFL games, this name was the best running back in the league. Although it was very short-lived, David Johnson's peak was insane. And today, we are going to be discussing the rise and the fall of David Johnson. It all started back in 2015, where David Johnson was selected by the Arizona Cardinals in the 3rd round, pick 86, and this is where the Cardinals finally thought they had their franchise running back. Now, things didn't always start pretty, and this is kind of where the red flags began to start. Looking back, it made sense, but in the beginning of his career, it was nothing to worry about. In training camp, David Johnson had a thigh hamstring sprain, which didn't allow him to practice until August 18th, which is right before the season. He was buried on the depth chart come week 1, but he would later take the role from Andre Ellington, who was the team's lead back at the time. Big Bruce Arians guy, they have a great connection, and he was very solid for Arizona. But when David Johnson got in that game, he proved exactly why he should be the team's lead back, as David Johnson posted 125 carries for 581 yards and 8 touchdowns. And this is the year where Carson Palmer had an MVP-like season, posting 35 touchdowns, 11 picks, and 4,600 yards. I think he was robbed as a Cardinals fan, but I digress, and this was the season the Cardinals were elite. They had Larry Fitzgerald, Michael Floyd, John Brown, Carson Palmer, and David Johnson in the backfield. They posted a 13-3 record and were the best team in the NFL. This Cardinals team was on pace to win a ring, and in their first playoff game, they defeated the Green Bay Packers in probably one of the most historic playoff games of all time. Larry Fitzgerald willed this team to the next round just to lose to Carolina, which ended the season, but that was enough for the Arizona Cardinals the following year to give the position to David Johnson. He would be the team's lead back in 2016, and oh boy, let me tell you something. They made the correct decision. He was ready to show the NFL exactly why he deserved this, and he was ready to take the league by storm, and oh boy did he not disappoint. This is the season that everybody in fantasy football in the NFL were claiming David Johnson the best running back in the league. And let me go ahead and take you inside 2016 really quick, as the Arizona Cardinals played the Philadelphia Eagles. The game David Johnson put everybody on the map. David Johnson would total 229 yards and 3 touchdowns in a singular game right before Christmas. David Johnson gave Cardinals NFL fans an early Christmas gift with this one, as David Johnson takes a carry right up the middle, spikes the ball, he's in for the first one. And he would do it in the receiving game just like the pass game. David Johnson was everywhere on the field tonight. He was making his presence known. He was running through you on 3rd and short situations. Like, just when you thought you had an answer for him, David Johnson would take the phone and he would slam it down. There was no answer for him tonight. It didn't matter. And this run right here is a lot of people's favorite run of David Johnson and most memorable. Get off me! I'm out! David Johnson would take it up the sideline, maintain his balance, and stiff arm somebody as he gets in the end zone. Absolutely legendary run right here. David Johnson put everybody on the map with this game. And this is why, if you were calling David Johnson the best running back in the NFL, you weren't crazy. In 2016, he posted 293 carries, 1,239 yards, 16 touchdowns, and that's not where it ends. In the receiving game, he had 80 receptions, 879 yards, and 4 touchdowns. That means 2,000 combined yards and 20 touchdowns. He would run through you. He would run anywhere all over the field. He would will this Cardinals team to the end zone every opportunity he could. The ball was in his hands. You weren't stopping him. But ending the season, Johnson ended it early in week 17 where he sprained his ACL, but he did avoid surgery, so that should be a blessing. Or at least that's what you'd think. I'll talk about that in just a second. But despite getting hurt in the final game of the season, this had everybody talking about him and proclaiming him honestly one of the best running backs. It was either him or Todd Gurley, and no matter what answer you picked, you weren't wrong. But this is a absolutely legendary season, as no NFL running back, almost posting in a thousand season, should get overlooked. And he didn't. Unfortunately, the Cardinals weren't as good this season though. They finished with a 7-8-1 record, did not make the playoffs, but David Johnson was well on his way to starting a Hall of Fame career, or that's what it should have been, because injuries started taking over. Because in 2017, David Johnson only played one game for the team, totaled 11 carries, finished 23 yards after he suffered a hand-wrist dislocation. That is very unfortunate, and it sucked. As a Cardinals fan, watching him go down, hearing the news that he will not come back for the remainder of the season was derailing. But the hope was there. After seeing what he did in 2016, it wasn't enough for the Cardinals to give up on him, as he would still be the team's leading back in 2018. David Johnson rehabbed, got through that wrist injury, and he was finally back. As you could tell, he lost a burst, he wasn't running the same, and David Johnson just looked like a shell of himself. Posted up decent numbers with 940 yards, 7 touchdowns, but the yards per carry began to drop. He finished with only 3.6, and like I said, that burst was gone. And remember that MCL sprain that David Johnson suffered? It actually appeared that that MCL sprain actually did a lot more damage than people actually assumed it did, because he didn't require surgery. Pair that with his hand-wrist dislocation, and there's probably a ton of mental blocks going through his head, and he's not running as hard. That combination of injuries could honestly alter your entire career. But it could have just been a down season, as the 2018 Arizona Cardinals were not good whatsoever. So it wasn't enough to give up on him, because the Cardinals finished 3-13. The line was terrible, everything about this team was terrible, hence why the head coach got fired, Steve Wilks, after 1 year, and they basically blew everything up, and they went a completely different route after drafting Josh Rosen. So the following year, they got a new regime in here with Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray in 2019, and looked to give David Johnson a fresh start. So this was David Johnson's final chance in Arizona. If there's anything left in that tank, it's time to show it under this new regime. With the new basically everything, it's time to unlock the talent and see if David Johnson can finally get back to that MVP form we saw him at, and unfortunately, he didn't do it. Johnson ended up missing 3 games in 2019, only playing 13. He finished 94 carries on the season, 345 yards, and 2 touchdowns. His production in the receiving game was way better than it was in the running game, as he totaled 370 yards and 4 touchdowns there. But you could just tell, alongside everything, that David Johnson completely lost his burst. He wasn't the same player, he wasn't running as tough, and you're seeing it take a toll on his play on the field. Wasn't playing as physical, and he just wasn't the same player. Arizona would come to grips with that and understand that David Johnson isn't the long-term answer at the running back position. And then this happened. David Johnson would then be partaked in one of the most insane trades in NFL history, as he was traded to the Houston Texans for DeAndre Hopkins. I'm sure all of you guys remember this. This was one of the most blockbuster moves. When it was announced, absolutely insane, because the Cardinals sent a 2nd-round pick in David Johnson, right? I'm gonna lay this out, for DeAndre Hopkins and a 4th-round pick. Actually, I think we gave him a 4th-round pick too. I'll double check and put it in the video. But this is one of the most lopsided trades, but it did give David Johnson that opportunity to bounce back with another team. Sometimes people need that fresh start, and David Johnson was looking to get that. But like I said, at this time, if you were a Cardinals fan or actually studied David Johnson, you would know why that trade was a fleece, because he's not the same player. But in his first year in Houston, he played okay. He had 691 yards, 4.7 yards a carry, and 6 touchdowns. The potential was kind of there, but for DeAndre Hopkins, who posted up 1,400 yards and 6 touchdowns in his first year with Arizona, you could tell the trade was pretty lopsided, and the Texans didn't really know what to do with David Johnson, as he missed 4 games there too. The injuries kept piling on, and he actually suffered a concussion in Week 9 against Jacksonville, which put him on IR, and he missed those 3 games in the back end. David Johnson would then play with Houston one more season, putting on 228 yards, finishing 3.4 yards a carry, didn't get in the end zone once, and that's kind of where you saw his career come to an end. But he tried one more time in New Orleans, where he didn't really get enough playing time to actually make an impact. But when he did, he really didn't do anything. 12 carries for 24 yards, 2.0 yards an average, and again, didn't get in the end zone once again. David Johnson would continue to stay in shape after this stint with the Saints in 2022, but would not land another job in the NFL. So in 2024, he called it a career and retired after 8 seasons. David Johnson's career honestly goes down as one of the biggest what-ifs in my opinion. Coming into the league, making direct impact, and in year 2, having an MVP-like season, to falling off due to injuries. If David Johnson doesn't get injured, his career might have shaped out differently, and we would be talking a lot differently about him right now. He could still be active and dominating the league just like he did in 2016, but I guess we'll never know. David Johnson will go down as a Cardinals legend in my book, even though his production was very short-lived. And it's very sad to see, man, because David Johnson was an insanely humble guy, insanely good guy, and was a monster on the field before everything went down. And like I said, if those injuries don't happen, I think we're talking about David Johnson in a different light today. But with that being said, that is pretty much going to wrap up today's video. Let me know your guys' thoughts on David Johnson down in the comment section below. What memories do you guys remember from David Johnson's career? What do you guys remember? Just let me know everything about it. Do you think he could have been a Hall of Fame running back without the injuries? Drop that comment down below. But with that being said, that is going to wrap up today's video. If you guys want to see more videos like this, let me know down in the comment section below as well. But that's all I got for today's video. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. It's been your boy Mythic. Peace out.